Do the words that you choose to affirm matter? Well, I want you to take a moment and think about that. And if the answer is yes, why? Maybe you want to pause this video for a quick moment to reflect. For those of you who don't know me and what I'm going to say, I'll give a hint. It's one of the biggest pitfalls that I see with my clients and others that are consciously manifesting. So if you want to know what I think about it and how to avoid it completely, then you're going to want to stay tuned. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another rousing episode of Spilling the Tea Tuesday. My name is Flossie, and I consider myself to be like the funniest, wittiest mindset coach, as well as your OG Hype Up Rampage Queen here on YouTube. If you want one-on-one coaching with me, links are going to be in the description box below. And this Sunday, Nikki and I are hosting an SP Accelerator course. So if you feel like your manifestation of your SP has like stalled out and you want to put the pedal to the metal and start getting it fast, then you're going to want to take that class with us. And it's legit only like $99, yo. Like, we don't do classes for $99, but we decided to because we want everybody to GYS. You know what that means? Get your shiznits, or you can put the other word in there. Also, we are back to having a VIP group, but it is on our YouTube of The Assumption Effect, where Nikki and I go live there with the VIP group, obviously. And then we have videos where we talk about manifestation topics in a conversation style manner. And we talk about some things that aren't typically talked about in other videos. So, oh snap! I literally just recorded this whole video and totally forgot to tell you how quickly movement can happen. I just recently got a message from my client. I coached with her, not this last Wednesday, but the one before. And then on Sunday, like 4 days later, she sent me this message about the movement that she got. It doesn't matter how much resistance you have. You can literally just keep affirming and persisting and have it show up. Use the tools, keep going. Here's what she wrote. Hi, Flossie. I hope you had a great weekend, and thanks again for your time on Wednesday. Just wanted to tell you that I saw SP last night, and he told me he loves me. I am so happy and so grateful for how quickly it's all unfolded in the perfect way for me, just as you reminded me it would. I appreciated how you reinforced everything for me and how your suggestions for reframing thoughts and using humor, isn't it so funny that I used to worry about this, in such a down-to-earth way. You're the best. Thank you again so much. So she literally had her specific person telling her that he loved her, and this was something that was not happening for her. It was something that she had like a fairly good amount of resistance to. And so doesn't matter if you have resistance or not, things can move like this. You just got to change your dominant thought enough so that your mind has that buy-in that what you're thinking could possibly be true, and use your affirming and persisting to get rid of this dominant thought, this assumption. You want to just overpower it. And you can affirm and persist until you overpower the resistance that you have and have your 3D reality conform. So that's it. Try to inspire you because you can get things hella fast. It doesn't have to take forever. And on that note, back to the video, yo. Before I get to the topic at hand, you guys know I'm going to do my calendar. And somebody asked where I get my calendar. I actually get it on Amazon. I love this calendar. I've been using this calendar for years now. So here we go. This says, oops, got to get it right. Fucking come at me Monday. You know what? When you're master manifesting, you aren't going to give a shiznit about Mondays. Why? Because it's not going to matter to you, period. This says, hell ain't got nothing on August. What do I say when it comes to the weather? Manifest weather. Manifest the weather you want, or manifest being in a place with the weather that you want. Unfucking believable. Now, I could say this could represent multiple things. This is my thought that I have when I have clients tell me that they don't want to affirm, or that they don't have time to affirm, or that they don't want to persist. You can also say that about when you're having a buy-in on the 3D. Why? Because the 3D like legit goes here in the L trash can where it belongs. And then sometimes when you're manifesting like a mofo, it's like unfucking believable. This shit just showed up, yo. Yeah, so take that as you will. You know I'm not big into the victim mentality. So this is starting today with a big dose of fuck yeah. When you start the day by affirming and persisting, you will feel that way. And when your manifestations start coming in. How much fucking school supplies can one store Sell, obviously, a ton. Just don't go to the store. Manifest getting it shown up at your house. The whole damn city is coming back from vacation. Not if you're a master manifesting, you can just stay away. You can literally stay away. Oh, and I might insert a picture of the shirt I'm wearing. I'm wearing a shirt of Darth Vader. You know my Star Wars references. And the shirt says, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying your lack of faith is disturbing. Disturbing. So, without further ado, let's get to the topic at hand. Do the words that you choose to affirm matter? If any of you have worked with me or watched 5 minutes of my videos, you probably know that my answer is going to be yes. Yes, they do. And for those of you that are new, I'm going to explain why. And sometimes it can be eye-opening even for people that have been in the manifestation community for a while, because this is not necessarily something that we spend a lot of time thinking about, right? Now, we tell you when you make affirmations to choose affirmations that imply that you have what you want. And I could probably find a video here on how to make affirmations as a review. But in general, the words, in my opinion, that you choose to affirm are very important. Why? Because it matters what it implies to you. And so one of the things that I see happening quite frequently in the manifestation community is that someone will post like a handful of affirmations and people will be like, oh, those sound cool. And then they start affirming them, but they don't necessarily really think, what does that truly mean to me? And when I coach people, I quite often, every call, if they have any sort of affirmations at all, whether it's email coaching or phone calls, I have them list out their affirmations or we discuss their affirmations. And quite frequently, and I'm sure some of the folks that I've coached can comment this if they will, quite frequently I point out that their affirmations don't imply that they have what they want. And they're surprised because they think that they are affirming something that would imply that they have what they want, and they're not. So, I'm gonna just get into it because you know I can get kind of rambly, especially when I make videos this time of the day. So I'm gonna list some examples and I'm gonna point out to you how those words might mean something different to you than what you actually intend. So, for example, I tell people to affirm about their manifestation abilities, and one of the 3 core concepts is either everything always working out for you or everything in your life being perfect. Now, there's multiple ways to say those things, and I'm not going to get into that video here because I've discussed them before, but everything works out for me. I tell people that if your assumption about that phrase is in order for things to work out, that there has to be a shitstorm dumpster fire in your 3D reality for it to work out, that is not the affirmation for you. Why? Because if you have a strong assumption that in order for things to work out, it's got to be a shitstorm first, guess what you're going to manifest? Now, if you recall, the last couple of weeks, the videos that I've made have been using props. Why? Because sometimes people are very visual and I just decided to bring a different element into my videos. So maybe watch last week's video where I talk about, affirming and ain't nobody got time for it to take forever. You might also want to watch the original one that I made 2 weeks ago where I started using the props, where I talk about like different levels of resistance and, affirming to overcome that. So if you have a really strong assumption, because I used these delightful containers full of purple water. Why? Because the color of everything that I have is purple. Hello. But this is the amount of assumption, the dominant thought that you have that if something works out for you, it's got to become a shitstorm. And you're affirming and persisting for what you want, but you got this really strong assumption that it's going to be a terrible bit because you're affirming everything always works out for me. Guess what you're going to experience? You are going to experience what? Shit becoming a shitstorm before it works out. Just saying. So that is one example. I wouldn't affirm that. If that is your assumption about that concept, don't affirm an affirmation like that. Go with everything in my life is perfect instead, because you don't want to manifest things becoming, Hades while you're manifesting anything. I mean, who wants to get a bunch of flippity flop happening in the 3D, especially unnecessarily. So avoid an affirmation like that if that applies to you. Another example, and these are some with SP. I am not the biggest fan of misses me. I can't tell you how many people I work with are affirming SP misses me. And I say, well, what does that mean to you? Well, they miss me. Well, why? Well, we're not together, or we're in no contact. So are you just reaffirming that you're in no contact? Now, if you refer to the videos that I've made the last couple weeks, and this can be amount of assumption, or it can be like level of resistance. So if you have a large assumption that SP, is you're in no contact, in the 3D, you're not together, and then you're affirming that they miss you, are you working to build a stronger assumption that they want to be with you? Or are you kind of adding a little bit to the pile of we're not together? Because this is like, we're not together. I don't have what I want in the 3D. The oil in the water in the cup is also a good example for that, because, you might be affirming, and you might be affirming some affirmations that imply you're together. But if you're following that up with that your SP misses you, to me, I think that you're adding a little bit more old story in there, because you're just reaffirming the old story. So if when you affirm SP misses me, it means to you that they are so into you that the minute that they would walk out the door, or your date would end, or whatever it is, that they would immediately start missing you because they can't stand to be away from you. That's one thing. But if missing, you, SP misses me, whatever, to you implies that, yeah, they're missing me because we're not together, because we're in no contact, because we don't see each other anymore, I personally would not really affirm that. I just wouldn't affirm it, because it doesn't really imply your end goal. You have to keep in mind that it's what the affirmation implies to you. It's not what it implies to me. But interestingly, when I point these things out to my clients and to other people, they're like, wow, I didn't think about that. I didn't realize that that also means that to me. So be very careful. I'm not a big fan of back together. Some people like it. Some people think that it would be natural for them to say that. I just say evaluate how much you think about the old story when you affirm that. Because if you're affirming SP and I are back together, that what implies that you had a breakup. So if you're doing revision that you've never broken up, you absolutely would not want to affirm back together. If you are wanting to really downplay the breakup, I would not affirm back together. If you are finding that triggering to you, I wouldn't affirm back together, because it implies there was a separation. See, you have to keep in mind the words that we use have implications. And so an affirmation might look cute on Facebook or on TikTok or Insta or whatever, but really evaluate, what does this sentence truly mean to me? If I were to hear somebody say this, what would I think? If somebody said to me, SP and I are back together, I'd be like, what the fuck, you broke up? Okay, so that's another example. There are some people who are really into the, SP is begging to be with me, or SP's begging to be back together, which to me is like a 2 for 1 in the same sentence. So I'm not opposed to the thought process that SP is so into you that they would be begging. But I would ask you to consider a couple things. Number one, if someone is begging to be with me, that implies that they're not together, because begging, if they're actively begging, that would imply to me personally that I'm rejecting them, we're not together, so that they have to beg. Some people find the word begging means that something so terrible happened that the SP has to like literally grovel, which could reference the old story. Now, if the word begging to you is not like a triggering thing, and you don't really feel like it references the old story, if you feel like it's more like saying they are so into me and they wanted to be with me so bad that they're basically practically begging, you can use that. But then I would change the verb tense. I wouldn't have it be where they're actively begging, because that doesn't really, to me, imply that you're together. Now, of course, it's what it implies to you. It doesn't matter what it implies to me, but I want you to consider these things when you're looking at your affirmations. So instead of saying like is begging, I would say begged. SP totally begged to be with me, or but totally begged to be with me, not to have me back. Do you see what I'm saying? See where I'm going with that? Or you can say like, oh, SP was begging, like you wouldn't believe how much SP was begging to be with me. Yeah, because like I'm the prize and they know it. So sometimes it can be good to follow up an affirmation with a reason why that would be true, especially if you're wanting to have your mind have a certain train of thought, if you're wanting to have your 3D reality conform to a situation that you desire. Just putting that out there. Some people are really big on affirming for an apology. I'm not the biggest for affirming for an apology, and if I am able to, I'll link the video here about affirming for an apology. It's not like you can't. It's just that there's a couple elements with that. Number one, it can control the how, because your manifestation is going to unfold, and if you're like affirming for an apology, you're kind of controlling how that manifestation is going to come to you. Now, we can choose to control the how if we want, but there are some caveats to that, like, you know, your God self, which is, you know, your higher self, your God self, God essence, consciousness, whatever, that is the party that manifests, that's within your subconscious, knows everything and everyone and everything that has to move for you to get what you want. Now, I like to keep my door wide open, because I know that even though I'm hella smart and I've been able to read since I've been legit 2 years old, those are facts, that I don't know every single possible way that my manifestation could come to me. And if some of you have watched my previous content, especially some of the chats that I've had with Nikki on the Assumption Effect YouTube, some of the ways I've gotten manifestations have been like hella crazy, or ways that I wouldn't have thought of. They were still ways that made logical sense to me at the end of the day, but they weren't ways that I would have thought of when I was thinking about the manifestation. And so if I had tried to control the how, it could be that I could have caused my own unintentional delay. Because I personally am not pure omnipotence. There's a part of me that is, and that's the part of me that manifests, and same with you. But this tiny, puny human brain, yeah, doesn't think of everything. So that's one reason. The other reason is that if you're affirming for an apology, you are also reaffirming that something negative happened in your 3D reality that the SP would have to apologize for. And while I do agree that SP should apologize if there is an apology that's due, many people find that when they're affirming for apology, they are also thinking of the old story, because they start thinking of why SP or whomever they're affirming for the apology would have to apologize. Now, if you don't want to be with somebody and you want to get that apology because you want that closure, go ahead and affirm for that, because you're not affirming for a relationship. You're not affirming to improve a relationship, continue a friendship, or whatever. But if it's something that you want a relationship with, I would not put my focus on affirming for an apology. What I would do instead is, number one, keep in mind that if you are due an apology and you're affirming that you're like in this amazing relationship, you have to keep in mind that your manifestations are going to, at the end of the day, unfold in either the most beautiful way for you or a way that is going to make sense to you. It is going to, you know, I like to think of my manifestations coming to me in the most beautiful way possible. So if SP did you dirty, or a friend like really messed up your friendship, or a family member was terrible to you, and you want to have that relationship improve, or, you know, have that relationship come back forth into the 3D, if you're doing an apology, you're going to get it. Why? Because that's what's going to make some logical sense to you. Like, you would not accept the relationship or accept the improvement without the apology or some sort of making amends, right? Right. So it is kind of implied when you're affirming for the relationship. You can, however, like, let's say that you are personally struggling to forgive your specific person. Nikki and I actually had a conversation about forgiveness and manifesting recently. And it's okay to say, like, I completely forgive, you know, SP, best friend, my mom, whomever. And then you can follow it up with, because they totally made it up to me, or because they treat me like a diamond now. Like, you can choose if you're really struggling. Like, if you feel like your holdup is, I'm struggling to forgive this person, I'm using the tools, well, you can affirm for it. You can affirm that you have forgiven this person and that it was easy for you to forgive this person. But sometimes it makes it easier to have a buy-in on that if you are affirming something with that makes some sense to you, you know, because they totally made amends. Like, that is okay. As long as you are how you feel about it. So it's what it implies to you. I personally like to go more on the side of, you know, I was so easily able to forgive SP because he treats me like a queen now. So you have to look at your affirmations and decide, like, how triggering it is to you, how much of an old story that you're going to acknowledge, etc. If you had a falling out with a best friend and you don't choose to do revision, and you're okay acknowledging that there was, you know, a little bit of a fallout because sometimes people disagree, and you're like, oh, I so easily forgave this person because they totally made it up to me. If that's not triggering to you and you're not thinking about old story, like, that's okay. But you have to evaluate for you personally, what does it imply? Does it imply that you have what you want? Is it making you think of constantly an old story that's concerning to you? Another thing is, like with money, I'm not a big fan of earn or make. Why? Because it implies that you have to do something. Earning, for most people, implies work. Making, when you make something, what are you doing? You're putting an effort, right? You are doing something physically that is bringing in that money. Why? Because you are making it. You are physically doing something. Like make is kind of like also means to do. So there are some people who affirm, like, you know, I'm making thousands of dollars a day, or I'm making more money than I could ever spend. If that to you implies that you're having to work for your money, I personally wouldn't affirm that. I would say getting or receiving, because that can imply that money could come from work. It could come from a business. It could come from stocks. It could come from an inheritance, a gift. Money could fall on your doorstep. You could fucking win the lottery because you're receiving or getting that money. It's not saying what the source is. It's leaving the door wide open for however you're going to get those manifestations. Some people are like, I'm always earning money in my sleep. If that doesn't imply work to you, and it doesn't make you think that money is literally tied to work, because a lot of us have assumptions about money that have to do with what money's difficult to get, that you got to work hella hard to get money. Well, don't reinforce that mindset by saying that you're making it or earning it. That's just a thought that I'm just putting out there. If you're manifesting health, try to stay focused on the health, improving. If it's hard to say, like, I totally feel amazing, because maybe you feel like shit, it's okay to affirm something like, I feel better each and every day, or, I'm feeling better by the day, or wow, I was feeling better by the day. I so quickly felt amazing. Like, there's ways that you can put things that aren't going to be as much of a negative pushback to it. I'm not, you can use placebos if you want, like if you're taking a medication, or if you are going to like physical therapy or something. Every time I go to physical therapy, I feel 10 times stronger. Every time I go to physical therapy, I'm feeling so much better. Physical therapy totally works for me. Like, it's literally healed my body. But try to make it seem like it's something that's already happened, or is in the process of happening to where it is imminent. Because you want to think as if you have what you want, even if it's something that is like imminently happening, like it's happening, it's either happening right now, or it's so close to happening, it's like any moment now, like within like a couple of days type of thinking. So I think it's fine for health to be like, I'm feeling better by the day, or, every time I do X, Y, Z, I feel 10 times stronger, things like that. One of the things I did want to point out is you have to keep in mind that what you're affirming probably is not true in your 3D reality at the moment. So that can make people feel like that they're lying to themselves, and that can feel uncomfortable. Remember, we're doing the mental conditioning in order to change our dominant thought so that our mind can have a buy-in of what we're thinking could possibly be true, so it can go to the subconscious to manifest. We don't, it's a process that we all go through. So pretty much every single person that is consciously manifesting most likely doesn't have, or does not fully have, what it is that they're manifesting. So you're affirming as if you have it. I have people ask me all the time, well, how am I supposed to believe it? You don't have to believe it. How am I supposed to deal with the 3D? Anytime you've ever dealt with a 3D when you were spiritually asleep and you didn't have what you wanted yet, you continued to do whatever it was that you needed to do while, you were hopeful, optimistic that what you wanted was, going to happen or whatever. And I did make a video not too long ago about the difference between, being spiritually awake and spiritually asleep, and how we tended to be more hopeful, more optimistic back during those times. And when we thought of having what we wanted as if we had it, we didn't really think anything weird about that. We just, if we wanted a certain job and it was like, yeah, I'd really like to work there, I could see myself working there. So you're seeing yourself working there, and then a job opens up and you applied and it's like, oh, I'm totally going to get it. I feel really positive about it. And so those are the type of conversations that we would have with people, and it seemed normal to do so. Now you're just doing it purposely. And so now it's like we feel a little weird about it. Don't feel weird about it. You're just doing the mental conditioning, and that's it. And if it's really bothering you, you can put your affirmations in the form of a question, because that often relieves anxiety, because your mind doesn't see it as you stating a fact. It sees it as you asking a question, but it still sees it as true. It's a very interesting thing that one of these days I'll talk more in depth in a newer video about. Of course, I'm looking at my list. You know, you guys know I have a list. So you can choose to affirm in stages, but if you do, make sure that your affirmation implies to you that it's imminent. I know I briefly touched base on that, but you don't have to directly affirm like, you know, the end goal or a full-on relationship, or that you absolutely already have what you want. It's just, you want to have something like, if you're manifesting an SP and you want some sort of relationship, have it imply that you're together in some way. Or if you're manifesting money, have it imply that like either that you already have that money, or that that money is like arriving right now. And so I gave a couple examples, like with an SP, let's say your end goal is marriage, or to at least be engaged. You could, for example, affirm something like, SP is so excited about proposing to me, or SP is so excited that he's picking out my ring, or, you know, SP is so excited that we're planning our wedding. Something like that, because that implies you're together. If SP is excited about proposing to you, picking out your ring, planning your wedding, that implies that you're in a relationship, because typically people don't ask each other to, you know, someone to marry them if they're not already in a relationship, or it's not at a level of seriousness to where they're going to do that. If you are wanting a relationship, but not wanting full, like, this is my partner, you could say SP is so happy that we're dating, or to be dating me, because it does imply some sort of a relationship. It's just for those of you who feel like going to, like, we're in this relationship, we're partners. If that seems too much of a stretch or too soon for you, you know, you could affirm something like that instead. With money, you could be like, a ton of money just hit my bank account. I'm so excited, a ton of money just hit my bank account. So it's like you're affirming as if it's just happened. If it's hard for you to be like, I've got tons of money, or I got tons of money in the bank, or I'm a, you know, multimillionaire, then look at doing something like that initially and get more comfortable, or, you know, put it in the form of a question. I did get a couple of comments, questions about, you know, this topic when I've made the video, and I just wanted to briefly touch base on it because it goes along with this topic. So I actually found the comment that I wanted to read. It was on one of my most recent videos, and it was left by Marissa, and I won't read the whole name, but Marissa says, I've been on the fence with this, but I feel as though it may help to ask the collective on this stepping stone when struggling or assisting self to get certain affirmations to sink in. Although I'm not sure it's necessary and could be a limiting belief in itself, but wondered about affirming something like, it's easy for me to believe XYZ. If we affirm something as though we're claiming it, so it seems as though just affirming what we already have is the key. Since this video about resistance and the belief part, it can be difficult, it got me curious. But then again, I guess simply affirming in the end state of what is and I am is what also clears the trouble with believing. So keep in mind, you don't actually have to fully believe what you're affirming. You don't even have to believe that it's true. You just have to have your mind have a certain level of buy-in that it could possibly be true. And the reason why I've made that caveat, and I think I'm one of the only ones that actually talks about it this way, is I've manifested plenty of things that I didn't actually believe to be true. I didn't actually think, some of the things I've manifested, I didn't think would happen, period. But they did. And so, and it's because they were so out there, like manifesting the OG SP to show up to my house on a day I said he would 4 weeks earlier, which I felt very positive about that. I was just like, you know, showing up on that day, period. But then to actually say the time that he would show up on that day and have him ring my doorbell in that 60-second window, that was mind-blowing to me. I did not expect that to happen. So you don't have to believe something, and there's plenty of people out there in the manifestation community who have manifested plenty of things that they really did not believe that they would manifest, or that seemed improbable. Some people would even say impossible. And so you don't have to believe it in its entirety to be true. You either choose to have the assumption, which is, the word assumption means to believe something to be true without proof, but you're choosing to think that way as if it's true. Which is like literally when we affirm from the end. Or I like to talk more about making it our dominant thought. At the end of the day, we don't have to fully believe it, because we don't. We just have to have our mind have a level of acceptance or a buy-in that what we're thinking, what we're affirming could possibly be true. So I think it's totally fine to use that preface. It's easy for me to believe XYZ. It's so easy for me to believe that I'm a multimillionaire. You can add at the end because it's true. So easy for me to believe it because it's true. Or because I'm a master of manifesting. Or because I've always known I was destined for money. There's different ways that you can put things and either use something that you already have an assumption about, because some people see themselves as always supposed to have been wealthy. So, you can say, it's easy for me to believe I'm a multimillionaire because I was always destined to be wealthy. Or if you have formed the assumption that you're a master of manifesting or, an expert manifester, you could put that at the end of it if you wished. You could just use it by itself, of course. Other things that you can do are use words of conviction or phrases of conviction, like it's a fact, the truth is. It's the words I use in my rampages and command letters. It's a fact, the truth is, literally, legit, because I said so, no matter what, I know. All of those type of things imply to you that what you're saying is true. And that's why your mind can have a buy-in faster by using those tools. I know that there was another comment that I was going to go over. One person pointed out, and this was an area that they had an aha moment in the video, and this was Elena, I think, Glam by Elena. She says, OMG, I think I figured out what I've been saying and didn't notice. And she put in quotes, I don't care how long it takes as long as I get what I want. And then she was like, what the fuck? Yeah, don't reaffirm that it's going to take a long time to you. Why? Because your 3D reality is what? Based on your dominant thoughts and assumptions on what? All the topics at hand. So if you have the assumption that, well, I don't care how long it takes because, I'm going to get what I want, don't imply that it's going to take a ton of time. Think of it as you just get your shit hella fast. I already addressed, someone said, I feel anxious about affirming for SP, what to do. Put it in the form of a question if you're struggling with, affirming for SP. And, you can use the tools. If you're feeling anxious, it's because most likely you're not seeing the 3D be what you want. So you're feeling anxious about it. So use the tools. It helps to get rid of the anxiety. FU letter for the anxious feelings or the negative thoughts. And then the command letter or love letter, command letter put you back in your power, thinking in line with your manifestation. The love letter will put you back into thinking as if you have what you want. We don't write love letters to people unless it's true. I will probably make yet another video about the letters because there always seems to be confusion about that. There just does. So, of course I could affirm and persist for something else, but I don't have all day to affirm for every little single nuisance that I come across. Having said all that, I hope that this video has been helpful to you in, giving you some mindset to recognize what are my affirmations? What do they truly imply to me? If I had a friend say this to me, what would it make me think? Would it make me think that this person had XYZ or had what they wanted? Or would I be thinking, wow, they must be broken up. Wow, what happened to them for needing an apology? Oh, OMG, they must see themselves as broke. So, with money, oh, don't be like, I can afford that tomorrow. No, you can afford it right now. Don't be like, I'll have it eventually. No, you have it right now, or it's imminently coming right now, any second now. Like you've signed papers on it, it's showing up. The money's being literally deposited in your bank as you speak. You have the winning lottery ticket, you're fixing to go cash it in. Think thoughts in line with what you want to experience as if you have it or it's legit imminent, because you don't want to affirm things that imply that you don't have what you want. I'm not necessarily of the mindset that if we think in a future tense that will keep it at bay, that we're never going to get it. However, since we're consciously manifesting, many people find that they get what they want sooner is if they think as if they already have it. Because we did a shift when we went from spiritually asleep to spiritually awake. We went from being optimistic and, thinking of ourselves as having that to, I don't have it, I've got to affirm, I'm having negative thoughts, blah, blah, blah. And so I think that is where a little bit of the shift happens. So I don't really like to keep things too far in the future. If it seems too far of a step, like seems too far out of reach as far as, how I feel about affirming for that, or if my clients feel that way, like affirming an absolute end goal versus something smaller, you can go with something smaller. You can go with a step. Just affirm as though that affirmation implies that you have what you want already. So really examine your affirmations. Does it imply to you you have what you want or doesn't? Is it reaffirming an old story? Is it, making it seem like it's going to be forever until your 3D comes to fruition? Or are you affirming something that literally makes it to where your 3D would have to be a shitstorm? I mean, don't reaffirm that you have to have a transition. Don't reaffirm it has to take forever. Don't reaffirm any of those type of things, or that, your 3D reality has to become this massive cluster dumpster fire before it can work out for you. I don't have a problem with that affirmation, but if you have a negative assumption in regards to that, then don't use it. Use something else. Look at your affirmations. That's usually a huge part of what is going on with my clients and what I fix. I mean, there you go. I don't gatekeep, because I just want everybody to just get their shit, period. Having said all that, drop any comments, questions, or concerns below, because I'm going to check them out. And as usual, I'm going to talk to you later. Bye.